Well, it focuses on who is last spoke. Oops. Okay, it is 6:30. We will call the meeting to order. Real quick before we do anything, for all the council members, we found out that our microphones were not picking up very well and people were not hearing well. So you will need to speak into your mic a little bit more, actually lean into it a hair. And I know you're not sharing anymore because they aren't really made to share. So hopefully with that and my toy here I'm playing with, hopefully everybody will hear us tonight. So with that, call the meeting to order. Do roll call.
Here.
Hemphill?
Here.
Where's?
Here.
Your microphone's not on, sir.
It is.
Gravel?
Hello.
Here.
Smith? Here.
All right, we'll stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. John, would you lead us in a prayer, please?
Dear Lord, look out for our community and help us get through the heat wave. Keep everyone hydrated. In Jesus' name, amen.
We would call for the approval of minutes from the July 13th meeting.
Motion to approve the July 13th, 2026 meeting minutes.
Yes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. And then Mindy would like to ask about a bank account real quick.
I would like permission to close the bank account they have set up for just sewer payments, move it into operations under a sewer fund. It's when they make payments online. Now that we have water involved, they have to be posted separate. So that would be like us transferring money out of the sewer account into this account and into those funds. So I would like to skip a step.
I don't think you need our permission to do that. I'm okay with it.
Okay.
So consensus.
Consensus, make it so.
Okay.
All right, move on to my mayor's report. I'm going to try, again, something a little different. I've been trying to figure out different ways to say these without going too fast or too slow or rambling. So I'm going to try to read off paper, which I don't like to do. But anyway, I'm going to try to keep it relatively brief tonight because we have guests here to help us learn more about data centers and battery energy storage systems, including both the potential benefits and concerns the community should carefully consider. I do want to take a few minutes, however, to explain why the city is spending time researching these subjects and several other long-term issues. Lynn Valley is at an important point in its development. We are completing a major water project and moving forward with the lagoon expansion. We are approaching the point where the city must seriously consider the future of City Hall and other municipal facilities. We have discussed animal services, parks, public spaces, economic development, and future use of properties such as the area we sometimes affectionately refer to as Poop Pond Acres. At the same time, Lynn Valley's comprehensive plan is approximately 19 years old and needs to be updated. A comprehensive plan is not simply a list of construction projects. It is a community conversation about what Lynn Valley should look like in 10, 15, and 20 years. That means researching not only what we need, but also what we want, what we do not want, where certain uses may be appropriate, and where they should be located or not be located. These decisions cannot be made one property or one proposal at a time without considering the entire community. Where City Hall should be located, where commercial development might fit, where parks and community facilities should go, how we protect residential areas, and what kinds of development Lynn Valley should encourage or restrict are all connected questions. The broader discussion must also include the kinds of everyday businesses and services our residents would like to have closer to home. A gas station, grocery options, restaurants, retail businesses, medical services, and other conveniences should all be part of that conversation about our future. The city cannot simply decide that a private business will locate here. A business must determine that Lynn Valley is a viable place to invest in. What the city can do is identify appropriate locations, make sure our zoning and infrastructure are ready, understand what businesses need, communicate the opportunities that exist here, and create an environment in which responsible development is more likely to occur. That is why economic development cannot be limited to reacting when a company approaches us. It also means identifying the needs of our residents and actively considering what kinds of businesses and services would make daily life better in Lynn Valley. During my first 6 months as mayor, much of my time was spent learning, listening, quietly researching, brainstorming ideas, and speaking with residents, city staff, professional advisors, neighboring communities, and others who may have useful experience. We are now reaching the point where those conversations need to become broader and more public. Some communities do much of this work quietly and do not involve the public until nearly complete proposal is ready for consideration. I do not believe that is the right approach for Lynn Valley. I would rather have those conversations openly, even when they are unfinished, complicated, or uncomfortable, so residents can learn with us, ask questions, and help shape the direction before decisions are made. That is how I choose to represent you. That is also why I've discussed creating committees such as an Economic Development and Growth Committee. It is also why I want to hold more informal coffee and cookies with council conversations with members of the council and the public. Updating our comprehensive plan should not be something created in isolation by one person or even only by the council. It should be shaped by the entire community. Data centers and battery energy storage systems are receiving more attention than some other topics because of the scale of their potential impact. They may offer opportunities, but they may also create legitimate concerns involving location, noise, traffic, infrastructure, safety, environmental impacts, property values, and the character of the community. Because the potential consequences, positive or negative, are significant, they require more research, more due diligence, and more public discussion than a smaller question such as where a dog park should go. Researching a subject does not mean the city has decided to support it. Speaking with a company does not mean a project has been approved. Listening to experts does not mean we have accepted every claim they make. It means we are fulfilling our responsibility as elected officials, gathering facts before making decisions. Nothing being discussed tonight will be built next month. These are long-term planning questions. They will require time, expert input, community feedback, careful rules, and multiple public discussions. My goal is not to decide Lynn Valley's future for the community. My goal is to help create a process through which the community can thoughtfully plan out that future together. Tonight's presentations are one part of that process. Anybody have any questions or comments, concerns about what I said?
Didn't we see about getting an off-ramp put here one time? Wasn't that talked about? And it was a definite no.
It was tall, but I don't remember anything coming
Do
up.
you remember, John? It's been a while back.
And I think it was before our time. I mean, it got brought up that someone approached somebody before a long time ago.
But I keep hearing everybody's talk about gas stations and grocery stores and how you can't get a gas station here if you don't have an off-ramp. I don't see anybody putting one in. We can't even get a dollar store. And they'll put $2 stores in a community with 500 people.
Well, do you say we can't get one? Have we tried?
Yeah, I called them. To, what's her name? The manager down here.
Well, you need to call corporate. The manager's not going to get you. You got to have a plan.
They weren't interested
Yeah.
in Lynn Valley.
But that's all part of the whole
I mean,
planning
and
process.
nobody's building grocery stores that I know of.
Grocery store is one example. I'm just, as a community, we need to work together what that is. None of us sitting here should make that decision for everybody.
Right.
Right. I don't think grocery store is viable here.
No.
We talked about this, Corey, but the rest, Michael, just so you know, I mean, we've already passed in population. We passed Lacine. We're bigger than Pleasanton. They're showing us well over 1,200. We're bigger than Lacine. We're bigger than Pleasanton. We're bigger than Drexel. We're really bigger than Amsterdam, Parker, and the rest of them. So I'm thinking that we're getting to the point, there's enough traffic to warrant some type
And,
of filling station.
like, it's time to be considering where we want to be, 5, 10, 15 years from now. Maybe today those things aren't there, but we
Right.
still need, part of our comprehensive planning update is
We are growing.
where those things
and
would
we're
go
going to get bigger. The
if
permits
we're
are
going to
there.
do that. So, yeah, it's a long road ahead of us to get it all figured out.
Yes, sir.
Next, I'll move on to, real quick, citizen participation for agenda items. Is there anybody here that would like to speak from this community about items that are on the agenda tonight? There'll also be an opportunity later to speak again if you have questions after things have been discussed. Okay. Moving on, the next thing on our list is we have Corey Plunk joining us remotely via Zoom. He's from Salute, which is a company that, I'll let him kind of explain more what he does. I'm not going to step on his toes there. I'll just, basically, he's here to help us understand data centers a little bit better. Lynn Valley is not evaluating a specific data center proposal tonight. We are trying to understand the industry well enough to update our comprehensive plan, decide whether this type of use belongs anywhere in or near the city, and determine what safeguards should be in place before anyone submits an application. We are also somewhat unique. We are a residential lake community with wildlife, dark skies, limited municipal staffing, an aging comprehensive plan, developing water and sewer infrastructure, and a strong interest in protecting the character of our community. Corey, you help reassure me that direct water consumption issue can be addressed through the right cooling designs, et cetera. And you said there were a lot of other things that we need to be concerned about on top of water. Water is the one that gets the big commitment. So with that, Corey, I'll just hand it over to you to kind of introduce yourself and help everybody understand data centers and the concerns a little bit better.
Sure. Thanks for the introduction. So a couple items to be clear. I do work for Salute. Salute is a third-party data center operations and services provider. I am here as an individual, not as a representative of Salute. I decided with all of the issues around data center development, I wanted to do some individual outreach into the industry because I am an expert in data centers, but I'm not a developer. So I kind of put myself as an independent third party. We staff and operate data centers wherever they go, and we hope those are in responsible locations that lead to successful data centers and also lead to successful communities around them that don't experience issues. So just to summarize issues with data centers, we see a lot in the news right now. The two big things that are always brought up are power and water, right? So the first one I want to touch on is water. The water issue is widely solved. It gets the most play, understandably, because everyone's concerned about water everywhere. No one wants their water to be consumed. No one wants water quality issues. Historically, data centers have used a lot of water because, like large buildings, like industrial buildings, they've used evaporative cooling towers that evaporate water to get the heat out. Air-cooled cooling solutions that don't evaporate water have gotten more efficient and more reliable. The industry is already switching away from cooling towers. If you go to most of the large mega-sized data centers today, they're already using closed-loop air-cooled systems, because then they don't have to deal with cooling towers, treating all that water and trying to get it. That's largely a data issue. If you guys move forward with zoning for data centers, I would make that a requirement day one, is that it's closed-loop air-cooled cooling systems, right? That not using evaporative cooling. That's an easy win. The issue of power is one that you have to solve with your local utility. Data centers typically aren't looking for places that are going to require infrastructure upgrades to power their data center. They don't have time for that. They want stranded power, and they're typically willing to pay for the kinds of substations or infrastructures to deliver that to the site. So the concern about raising power bills is usually not an issue. Have there been situations where there were bad development deals done, especially up north, Rust Belt kind of areas? There have been. But as long as you're requiring them to build the substation, to put in the necessary infrastructure, it should not be a bill-raising event. It may even lower bills for the community because you're using capacity that's not being used today and sharing the cost of maintaining the power plants and the distribution. So that's also a solvable issue. Bigger issues that need to be concerned, you need to be concerned with is noise. So any data center has tons of air conditioning and tons of backup power, right? Two things that a data center have to have is cooling and power all the time. So they will typically bring in a huge amount of diesel-powered backup generators. Sometimes for larger sites, if there's natural gas pipelines, they'll go with natural gas. But all this stuff creates noise, so you need to have appropriate buffering. And then you need to have protections in your zoning. I would require a third-party acoustical study for the plans to validate that it is going to get built without putting too much noise across the property line. I'd make sure that you have a standard that's enforceable, that they're required to meet with penalties if there is a problem. Because even if you build it with appropriate protections, appropriate requirements for noise, equipment can degrade, equipment can break, and start making more noise than it originally was. So you need to think about having an enforcement mechanism to make sure it's fixed, right? How much noise can you stand? And what is the mechanism to fix it if there's not? You need to understand that all these backup generators, if there's a widespread power outage, they're going to fire up. It creates a lot of exhaust. So you're going to want to ask for Tier 4 emissions standards on your generators, if that's not already required by the state, so that the exhaust is minimized, right? You're also going to want to think about access to the site. It needs to have a lot of diesel fuel stored. You're going to have deliveries and workers coming in and out. It's not like a warehouse. But you will have issues with fuel deliveries, equipment deliveries that need to be cared for where the facility is sited, right? So that access is important. And then, there's going to be ancillary services that may want to come, so you need to make sure access is there, right? You don't want people driving through a residential neighborhood to get to the site, of course. And then you also need to think about what if there is a fire or other issue? Do you have the fire department? Do you have the emergency services to serve this site, right? You're talking about large buildings. They're going to have fire suppression. They're going to have sprinklers. They're going to have all of that, but you got to be prepared. Can you handle a fire in a large building? Diesel fuel on site, access, all of those issues. So those are some of the main things to think about. Really, the big issue that is hardest to solve, depending on the site and location, is the noise issue, and that can definitely agitate people. So you need to care for it up front with the zoning. That's throwing a bunch of things at the wall. I don't know if any of those generate questions or I need to expand on, but I just try to hit the highlights.
On the noise issue, as you know, or maybe I can't remember exactly how I explained how much we are, where we're at and all, but we're in a rural, isolated type area. We have a lot of wildlife around here that people enjoy, lots of deer and birds and other critters running around. From the noise perspective, do we know how that's going to affect the wildlife, and how far away does that noise travel from the site on average?
Yeah, so how far it travels is greatly impacted by what kind of screening and noise mitigation is done on the site, right? So typically you're going to handle that by putting a decibel level maximum at the property line. And then all sound degrades the same way, right? So, however that property line requirement is, you set it low enough that it will degrade. And an acoustical engineer can help with setting that based on how far away things are that might be impacted by that noise. It can help you set a decimal level. And when they design the site, they can use screen walls, they can use sound attenuated equipment, they can put things on the roof to meet those requirements. So it's really about just setting that requirement and making sure it's designed to that on the front end. As far as impacting wildlife, I don't know of any studies that give any specific impact that's any different than generic noise, like being next to a highway or being next to a shopping center or something like that. The amount of noise, I imagine, would impact that, but other than when generators are running, you're really not talking about huge amounts of noise. I mean, there's a whole lot of air conditioners running. You go to any data center, you're walking around the site, you're not wearing hearing protection, right? It's just a lot of air conditioners. With proper setbacks and screening, it's not a huge issue, but it does need to be cared for up front.
What question do you guys have for him?
The only other question other than sound would be light. You know, so that's a good question, I think.
Yeah, so we're right beside a very large power plant that lights up the night sky. So how much light is a data center typically going to put off?
Yeah, so the only really need for light is there'll be a parking lot, obviously. It's a 24/7 facility, so people need to have lights to walk around building to building if it's multiple buildings, or get out to an equipment yard. If you handle it with requirements for things like dark sky compliant light fixtures, full cutoff light fixtures, you can mitigate sky impacting light. You can do the same thing with light on the property line as well. That's how you would typically handle that. In a more urban area, you say this is the amount of foot candles of light that are allowed to spill past the property line. Light's not a huge issue. There's not anything really going on outside other than equipment yards that need any kind of significant light. And those, you could have them switch off, have occupancy sensors, you could have, again, full cutoff, dark sky type fixtures and really solve a lot of that. The big issue with data centers is what's going on inside.
I had a question about the closed loop cooling systems. How often do those got to be drained and flushed or whatever, or do they?
Not very often. So it depends on what kind of system. So there's two things right now when someone talks about closed loop. There's the chilled water system, which is typical to any large facility, any kind of large office building, industrial building, even some commercial buildings have a chilled water system. You're not routinely draining that, right? That's just going to go around. A more unsolved issue is with the latest AI kind of chips. They have a separate cooling loop that's got glycol in it. That's a new technology. I imagine you're going to be seeing those drained maybe once a year as they refine how to protect it, because it has very tight tolerances on things like corrosion or contamination in it. Even then, we're not talking huge volumes of water compared to things like even a Walmart, or definitely not industrial scale amounts of water being used draining it, although there is some amount of water.
Right. The concern wasn't with the amount of water. It was, is the water contaminated? What do they do with the water? How do they make sure it's not contaminated and put it back into the ecosystem kind of thing?
Yeah. So with the standard chilled water side, those can have anti-biologic chemicals in it, but that's extremely common. Typically goes into the sanitary sewer. I don't know what your municipal water system looks like, but that's not something that typically causes an issue anywhere. The AI stuff has glycol in it. Typically, you don't drain that into a municipal system. Different municipalities, different water systems have rules about glycol and if it can be released. But often those, if it needs to be drained, they're just trucked off-site and disposed of as a chemical.
So we could just have them truck it off-site and then not deal with it, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
for sure. Make that a requirement.
No.
And I would just make a comment too. If they're building the kind of large data centers that are getting built now, the stuff going in the building costs a lot more than the building and the site itself. So things like that, those kind of requirements, hey, we want an upgrade in the lighting, hey, we want you to truck this stuff off site, not use our sewer system. That's an incremental cost to them, right?
Right.
So they have money to make these improvements, and I wouldn't be shy about asking for them.
Now, this might be an off-the-wall question, but like, let's say they went above the noise level they were supposed to be, and they just said, well, we're just going to pay the fines, we're not going to fix the problem. Have you ever ran into that?
I haven't been involved with that because most of the time you don't want to agitate any municipalities in that way.
Right.
I have seen recurring issues where you fix it and then it starts making noise again in an older facility. I would just make sure you have teeth, right? If it's $100 fine, that's not going to be a big deal to them, right? Maybe it's, you're going to red tag the building and shut them down. Maybe it's, a huge fine of some kind, right?
Right.
Make it hurt.
There's always developers somewhere who don't want to do the right thing, but typically they want to do the right thing because it's really not that burdensome for them to do it, right? And you want a good relationship. You don't want an adversarial relationship, but definitely have teeth for the alternative.
Thank you.
John, you got any questions?
I pretty much answered my questions.
Richard? Shannon?
No, thank you.
Corey? Brett? Matt? No? Let me see if there's anything else.
Hey, Lister.
Yeah.
One of the big components he brought up I know a lot of people have reached out to me in relation to the discussion of the electric bills and things like that. I think the public has to understand the Kansas Corporation Commission sets those rates and those standards, and thus far there have not been increases because of the data centers. And many cities are, when they create their ordinance, rules, regulations, those can be incorporated in there to make sure that those rates do not affect the residents. The Kansas Corporation Commission a year ago had passed policy that if these companies got over a certain rate, that they would be increased and have to cover the infrastructure, which then would lower the bills for residents. So I think that's important that the governing body and everyone understands that the issue is not going to be so much about electric bills going up and things like that. In fact, there's safeguards that the commission has already put in place and through our ordinances that we would have to create to make sure that does not affect the residents.
I have a couple of other questions too. So one of the things, being a lake community, one of the things that a lot of people are concerned about is water runoff into the lakes. And I don't think, as you've talked about the different water cooling options and stuff, that I don't think that that's an issue, especially if we can have them hauled off. But then the question becomes fire. If there's a fire and we have to use water suppression and stuff to put out said fires, what kinds of mitigations can there be to make sure that water doesn't end up in our lakes?
Yeah, so that's a classic kind of civil engineering question they can work through with, where does the site runoff go, right? So if it's in the building, that's going to go to sanitary. If we're talking about, a firefighting situation with foam or water and you're spraying outside on the site, you got to design for how do you collect that, right? So I'm not really an expert in the civil engineering side of it, but that's a common issue anywhere you have development with the sensitive site around it. So they can work on how they retain that and, doing separators and those kinds of things. There's nothing There's nothing inherent to it being a data center that affects that.
It's just the size of it, the size of the buildings. I think
Correct.
that's a concern, especially, we have a all volunteer fire department, which, if something like this were to come here, that might have to change. We might have to have a real, not I don't want to say real fire department. I don't want to get our public safety guy over here upset, a full-time staffed fire department, maybe. I don't know, have you seen any communities that do support something like this on a volunteer firefighter basis?
I mean, I would imagine, but I'm usually not involved in that conversation. As far, on the front end with the fire department, I will say there's a lot of big data centers going way, way out there in much more rural locations than you are. So I think what I would do if the opportunity comes up, hey, if you guys need to update your fire department and their systems in order to facilitate this data center, then I would, ask for them to front some money with that and to support it.
Okay. So, you've talked about a lot of things that we need to, things we need to be worried about, things we need to put in our ordinances and such. So, in your experience and all the different people you've talked to and the data centers you've been involved with, what would you think are the 5 biggest mistakes a city has made, things they should have, they did to allow one in that really cost them?
Yeah, so, number one is, and I think you're already aware of this, is not engaging the public on the front end, right? And creating a bit of a panic. So it's good to see that you're out in front of that, thinking about that. That's number one. 2 is the noise issue, not even addressing it, not thinking about it, or not having an enforcement mechanism. You got to think about, as equipment ages, it can tend to get more noisy if you're not repairing it properly. So thinking about the setbacks and that mitigation is very, very important. Site access, right? So if you put it, and this is more of an issue with older, smaller data centers, not accounting for the fact that you're going to have fuel deliveries, you're going to have equipment coming in from time to time with big repairs, caring for that access, and realizing that in a general emergency event, workers are still going to want to get access to that site in order to keep the data center active, right? So making sure that that's there. Partnering with the data center, right? So if someone builds a data center, knowing what's in it, knowing what their requirements are, and working together on that, and that helps solve the issue of fire as well, if you know what's inside of it and what their fire suppression is capable of handling on the inside. Those are important. Those are the big things.
Okay.
Sites have used a lot of water. I personally have not encountered a situation where they just use too much water. Right, because you work that on the front end, you don't get permission to build the site if the water system can't support it. But it's just all proper planning.
So I know when I talked to you last time, we touched a little bit about on jobs. There's obviously construction jobs and stuff that are part of the building of these things. But what about the long-term job situation? We're a little bitty town here of 1,100 or 1,200 people.
Yeah, so there's 2 types of jobs. So people give really low job head counts on these facilities because they're only looking at 100% permanent site-specific jobs. If you think about those, it varies a lot by the type of facility and the way they structure their operations, but a good rule of thumb is 1 person per megawatt. So you get a 100 megawatt site, you might consider it's going to be 100 permanent people working on site, right? Now there's all kinds of ancillary people that are going to support this facility that aren't necessarily 100% in that site, and they may or may not live in your community, right? They could be traveling from, another town, supporting a number of data centers or a number of facilities with, certain types of HVAC or electrical equipment, electricians, those types of things. But 1 per megawatt's a good idea.
And of those jobs, I mean, obviously some of them are, server maintenance type, IT type jobs. I would assume there'd also be like janitorial and security and.
Yeah, you're going to have security, you're going to have janitorial, you're going to have a lot of entry-level people to service the building infrastructure. A lot of those can and will be local because there aren't experienced people out there, right? Everyone's hiring. So you got a residential HVAC guy that wants to move over into commercial. You got a guy that works on trucks and wants to learn how to maintain generators. Those types of people are usually local hires. You're going to need admin people that learn how to do what we call change management, and that's managing procedures and policies and, those types of things. Purchasing, sometimes we'll have a person on site to deal with vendor issues. Depends on the size, but yeah, there is significant hiring that happens.
And so it's a wide variety of types of jobs and skill levels.
Correct, yes. And then you're going to need services too that can be local and often are hired local. Things like the workers need a coffee service. They're going to need snacks and stuff in the break room. They're going to need, purchasing of small local sundry type things, or even janitorial supplies can be done locally, right? So there's opportunities there too. Landscaping is another one. You have a big site, you have to deal with grass and trees and those things.
Well,
What's the most important question? How much money we get?
Well, actually, so that is a good question, and I don't know how much Corey can speak to this, but from what my understanding and my research is, Kansas does not allow the equipment inside to be property taxed on a data center. So as far as property taxes from a data center, they'd be taxed like a warehouse, which is still, for us that we're 99% or more taxed our citizens for things. That alone is a significant amount of money compared to our budget. But where the real money for the city comes from is our 5% franchise fee to Evergy. So 5% of the electric bill for these facilities comes into our pocket, plus the 1% sales tax that we have. And Kansas law requires that at a minimum, they have to buy local power for 10 years. So they can't say, well, we're just going to put our own power in and not pay you. They have to, and a 100 megawatt facility, uses a lot of electricity. And I don't know what the average facility sizes are right these days that they're building, but I think 100 is in there. From my research, a 100 megawatt facility could bring in around $3 million in tax revenue. Annually.
And over
That's
city-
not a promise by any means. That's just some rough research I've done. Which is more than three times our budget.
And if the city owned the land, would we lease it to them or sell it to them?
Well, we don't have any land of that size to lease or sell to them.
Right, but if we did.
If we did, it would depend. We could do it either way. But I'm not looking for us to go out and buy land just so we can lease it or resell
Right.
it,
Do we know what the average lifespan is of a data center?
They've been around for a long time. I don't think they're going anywhere.
So do they just upgrade them or
Corey?
retrofit them?
Yeah, you typically do upgrades and retrofits. We're in some uncharted territory with the level of growth in the technology change, but we are a long, long way away from anyone turning off data centers or shutting anything down. We are in an exponential growth phase, and just think about the internet. Anything that touches the internet in any way lives and travels through data centers. So
I don't think
unless
you.
there's
I don't think you can go down to Dollar General, even buy a Reese candy bar with cash and not go through a data center.
Correct.
You know,
But what does happen if they decide to pull up stakes and close it down? Who's responsible for the cleanup?
I have an answer for that if Corey doesn't.
No, go ahead.
Basically, you put a decommissioning clause in the ordinance and everything where they're forced to clean up and put it back into the previous state.
That was one of the community questions that people were asking.
Yeah, that's a very good question to ask, because you wouldn't want to come in here, be here for 5 or 10 years, and then leave us with a huge building to sit there and figure out what to do with. You know.
Corey, do you know of any that have been decommissioned?
And I can't even think about a data center that I know of that's not at least 30 years old that didn't get shut down, that got shut down. It's just, you know, maybe some really old, really tiny ones that are so small you can't really retrofit it, or there's just no power there or space. But even then, they're getting turned into what they call edge data centers that just support the edge of the internet out to the individual users and things like, you know, cell service and those things. So, I mean, I can't say it doesn't ever happen, but not big data centers. I haven't seen one get shut down.
From a police patrol perspective of having, you know, a large, potentially largest area to go out and drive around, make sure it's, is that any concerns of yours, Corey?
Most of those have their own private security
Right.
anyway, so short of them calling us because they're having issues and everything. Do it all.
Anything else from anyone? All right.
I'd say on the fire side of it too, concerning like the volunteer side of it, is that we have mutual aid agreements signed with Lynn County and also Montgomery County as well. So anytime there's anything that's, I mean, there's something that's a structure fire in the valley, everybody's coming to that to help. It's not just us. So we've got all the other agencies coming to all those systems. So
Mindy, you got any questions? No? All right, well, I think with that, well, thank you very much for your time, Corey. I do have one other question for you, and, you know, you don't have to answer this one right now. I'll give you a little time to think about it, but if we were to host a town hall where the citizens can ask questions, is that something you would be interested in participating in, either remotely or if we could fly you out here or anything like that?
Yeah, possibly. Let's talk more about it and when it would be.
Okay.
I hadn't considered that, but I don't see why not. But let's talk more later.
Yeah. I don't want, you know, I know you're doing this on your own and just, you know, being helpful, so I don't want to take advantage of it, but
Yeah.
I have to ask the question.
I get it.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Dave. And with that, we'll move on to our next topic, which is Georgia Meisler from Silverton Power is going to come here and talk to us about battery storage facilities. And she has a presentation I'm going to share if I can find what I did with it.
Gotta hope.
I have it open. I just have to find where.
Gotta hope no porn pops up there.
Not on the city computer. All right, so let me introduce, I have a thing to say about Georgia before she starts. So basically, I want to kind of reiterate what I said about, you know, us being unique. So Georgia is here from Silverton Power. They have contacted us about the potential of putting a 1 to 2 acre battery energy storage system next to that Evergy substation on Ullery. So, you know, just as she comes here to explain more of that to us about, I just want to kind of reiterate about, you know, a lot of the concerns are around our recreational thing and our lakes and our wildlife, and a lot of the concerns are around that. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of that context, and then I'll let you introduce yourself and talk about Silverton. Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't think it's on. Hold it down.
Okay. I'm hot mic now.
You're hot mic. I can see you're talking. It's working.
Careful what I say. So, thank you so much for introducing me, Mayor Potter. As you mentioned, full disclosure, we did approach him about the idea of leasing some of the city-owned land right there next to this substation. And that led to this kind of bigger conversation. Congratulations to this town for having a mayor that's so proactive and interested in the community engagement. It's also really important to Silverton Power. It's the way we really like to do things. Great to speak to you and talk to you a little bit about battery storage and mainly really hear your questions. I do have a presentation and we'll go through it really quickly, but mostly want to open up to answer any questions that you might have at the end. So next slide. There's a lot of words on there that are very small on the screen. And I will not read through the list. They basically are just telling you what I'm going to talk about today, which was battery storage specifically, but also kind of how it fits into the grid at large and what it has to do with data centers, also what it doesn't have to do with data centers. And then I know that there's some concern about the safety issues because of the history of battery storage, and I'll spend the most time really trying to address those concerns. Okay, good for the next slide there. So congratulations to Kansas. You are 52% wind energy. It's very impressive. And solar is coming into the mix at an accelerated rate as well. There are some larger solar projects coming online. And when you combine that with the fact that some of the legacy power plants are getting toward end of life and will be retiring in the next decade or more, you find yourself with the intermittent renewable power coming online, doing a whole lot to help the grid, and then having a gap in between when the sun is not shining and the wind is not blowing. And that's kind of one of the main functions that battery storage can address. It stores that surplus energy mainly at night when it's super windy, and also during the daytime during the sunniest hours when there is surplus beyond what the grid needs to absorb. You know, the job of your grid operators is to balance supply and demand. And there are times of day and night when there is surplus renewable energy being produced that is not used. And that's what battery storage can do at the kind of highest level. There are some other things I'll talk about later that it also brings on that are referred to as ancillary services. And I'll get into that a little bit as well.
Am I on the right slide now?
So, like I said, batteries store power and then inject it into the grid when it's needed. So they typically charge either mainly at night in Kansas when you have surplus wind energy. You may know that there are times that the wind is blowing so hard that they turn off the turbines. And you know, if you actually built a battery capacity at scale, you could reduce some of that curtailment and really take advantage of that wind energy even more efficiently, and, you know, with what is already in existence from an infrastructure perspective on the wind end. That's what I want to say about that. An interesting aspect of the way your SPP, it's kind of, they're the boss of energy, right? And they look at the really, really big picture of the transmission scale energy, which is not just for moving power through Kansas, but also outside of Kansas and broader. And they put a requirement on the utilities to have a reserve power margin. And right now, Kansas sits at a 20% margin. I think the requirement is 17%. So they're a little ahead of the game. But looking at some of the large energy users coming online, data centers being the biggest part, but others as well, the economy in Kansas is growing. Industries use electricity. Also electrification, electrification at the residential level and EVs, sucking a little bit more power as well. So with those variables under consideration, SPP thinks that reserve power margin will reduce from about 20% today to less than 1% and even negative percent by 2030. And what that reserve power does for you is it keeps your power on during the hottest days of summer like today. So the reserve margin is super important, and a lot of things are being done, but battery storage can be one of those things. The coal retirements have been delayed, as you know, in Kansas, and will continue to be delayed. Many of them will be replaced by gas plants. And gas and coal, typically, their main function is to supply backup power. So what batteries can actually do is reduce the amount of that new construction for the gas plants to replace coal as it retires by kind of like filling the gap there. And I'm ready for the next slide. And that's kind of a lot of technical information, and I'm definitely going to give you time for questions. I will not go too much into this super technical 4 ways that best strengthens the grid. But that peak shaving thing is, so we have something called the, I won't go there. Without a picture, I need the picture to explain. But peak shaving and cost control is storing energy when it's surplus on the grid and then injecting it back into the grid when demand is high. And battery storage is actually a less expensive source of electricity than some of the other peak energy supply, including gas and coal. So it can actually reduce the total cost of energy in the grid. Reliability and backup power. So the type of projects that Silverton Power in particular is interested in building are the smaller scale, what's referred to as distributed energy generation. What that means, unlike we all come from a background of building the bigger power plants that go into the transmission grid, even state to state, but the kind of project that we would build on a 1-acre site actually produces reliability at the local level right here for you. And it can potentially keep your lights on in the Moon Valley and surrounding communities related to this substation. If it has frequency deregulation or voltage issues, which is a really nice thing to be able to say, because it was always a question when I was building the bigger projects, how does this benefit me in my town? And it was like, yeah, it does the whole grid, so it has that nice big picture benefit. But the projects we at Silverton build are those nice small ones that actually are local power. And they feed right into your power lines that feed your homes and businesses in your community. I can talk a little bit about the safety. I'm going to do it at a pretty high level because I want to leave it open to your questions. So a couple of things that you should know about battery storage. We are a very highly regulated industry, not just from the technology and the products that we have the ability to deploy, but also for site design. So there are codes and standards from NFPA, which these are the language you speak. But NFPA and UL 9540A are, so NFPA specifically regulates the way the site is laid out. So for fire department access, gating, site control, to make sure critters don't get in, and those kinds of safety measures. And then the UL 9540A testing gets really into, it's actually, it's called a large-scale fire safety test. It actually pushes the equipment to fail, and over time, that how hard it has to stress the system to make it fail has continued to increase. And now they, in addition to causing that failure and seeing how the system would perform and making sure that it's compliant with any standards, they also are doing a propagation study to see how that push this one all the way to failure. How much do you have to push it, and will it ever spread to another container within? And so that's a new set of standards that is just coming into fruition. the project that I had operational now for 1 year was compliant with that set of standards as well. So there's a whole lot of interest in the safety of the equipment. And over the last 10 years, when battery storage has really come online more and more, it has, well, I have a really good statistic on this. So the average number of incidents in a given year has been about 10 incidents a year worldwide. And batteries have been deployed now 65 times more than 10 years ago, and it's still 10 incidents a year. So that is happening because anytime there is an incident, it's kind of like we have our own FAA. You know, when there's an airplane incident, they send in the studies and they make airplanes safer. The same kind of thing, even with very small incidents, they send in the safety group, they study the heck out of it, and they make harder, you know, safety standards that the next iteration of batteries will comply with. So my favorite story is meeting with, just picture the most handsome, super experienced firefighter, fire chief in Gorham, Maine. So, you know, right on the edge of the waterfront, super crusty older guy. And our fire safety engineer sat down with him, and he gave the safety spiel. And the safety engineer said, there are a lot of fire-related things that I worry about, but battery storage is not on the list. It's just, it's safe. It's and getting safer all the time. So I'm going to the next slide there. Yeah, so there you go. There's my statistic. I was just jumping the gun. So 65 times more batteries and about 10 incidents a year. So from an environmental perspective, one of the great benefits that we have compared to other types of energy use is that the equipment is super energy dense. So our footprints, even for a big project, can be 5 acres. The projects we build, we're requesting the lease of about 1 acre. Our actual footprint of our facility will be about 4 acres. And then the rest of it will be access roads, fencing, screening, that kind of thing. So similar to data centers, the main producer of noise is the HVAC system to keep it at an even temperature throughout the year. And so that makes about the same amount of noise as the air conditioning unit at your house, which is probably humming today. Let's see, life cycle and recycling. A common issue that people have, and it came up with the data centers as well, what happens at end of life. We definitely always commit to a decommissioning plan, and typically we'll post some sort of financial surety along with that. And we get the site back to as close to the situation it had before as possible. If there was tree removal or required for something like that, like it's required, that's obviously not going to be the same. But as far as equipment, we take it all out and restore the site, sort and all of that. So as I mentioned, the energy produced by batteries is super cost competitive. It's actually gone down in price per energy unit by 90% since the kind of utility scale deployment of battery started to happen around 10 years ago, even a little less than 10 years ago. So it is very, very cost competitive with other types of energy and typically the cheapest option. And I'm happy to answer more questions about the specifics on that without going into the prices per kilowatt hour, for example. So for Lynn Valley, local tax revenue, and you all are aware, if it's city-owned property, it's probably tax exempt, which would continue. And so a mechanism that we've used in situations like that is a pilot agreement. Is that something you're familiar? Payment in lieu of taxes is what pilot stands for. And it's a mutual agreement that takes the place of property tax revenue, and it lasts throughout the life of the project. In bigger projects and in different kinds of situations, there can also be a community benefits agreement. And both of these things should also apply to data centers as well. These are mechanisms that are available to local communities to make sure that you're getting tax revenue from our projects in the event that it's a or there's an exemption for the tax. There are significant construction jobs and then a smaller number of operations jobs in the long term. Typically for a project like this, the operations jobs is probably going to be one person full-time that's in reasonable proximity that could respond to an issue if there was some sort of an operational anomaly that occurred, they needed to be called to respond. These facilities are monitored 24/7 remotely, and they look for anomalies in either heat or frequency and deploy maintenance people. Typically, those people, same with the data center, they're specialized people, so there may not be one for every single data center or battery. And then workforce training. I happen to know that in Wyandotte County, they have 2 different workforce training programs for all of this electrical infrastructure that's coming online. And we would take, we would like to use as much local construction contractors as we can, and they will hire the local workforce. So there's some sort of regional benefit from the workforce perspective as well. Oh, yay.
What type of batteries are you using? LFP?
They are lithium ion. That is both from a safety perspective and an energy density perspective, the top tier. I know you got more questions.
Yeah.
What projects does Silverton have currently in Kansas in operation?
It's a great question. So our company was founded in December of 2025. We come from a background of the utility scale battery storage, and so I personally have led the development of projects in about 14 states. And then the 2 founders come from a more technical engineering background in energy, and then a Tesla power markets background. So us as a team, we have a background of projects that I think I shared with you. We have a pretty good long list
Yeah.
that we wanted to share of projects that we've been involved in. Not in Kansas yet. This is a new market for us.
So you have no best projects in Kansas. What other states do you have best projects
Sure.
currently operating?
Yeah.
14, is that what you said?
So for myself personally, operational, I have 2 in California, 1 in Maine, 1 in New York, and 2 in Massachusetts. And then one of our founders, Josh Papernak, has several in Texas. That was the Tesla's business while he was working there. And then if I remember the list correctly, I think we have also a couple of in Arizona, Nevada, and then one in California from our real estate.
Yeah.
So are those actual Silverton projects or just projects that you all individually headed up prior to the formation of Silverton?
The latter.
Okay. So this project is the first Silverton project, period. Is that what you're saying?
It will be one of many firsts. Hopefully, we're working on about 10 right now.
In Kansas?
In Kansas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could you explain the difference between the larger scale ones that you all have backgrounds in, and the smaller scale like this, and what makes these unique? Are they safer? Are they more cost benefit, or what's the differences? 'Cause I think most people, all they've ever heard about are these large ones,
Right.
and you're talking about something that if you're talking an acre of property,
Yeah.
and a quarter of that is actual
Right.
facility. That's a really, really small.
It's a small book.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the main benefit is that the interconnection process is a lot shorter and more straightforward. And instead of going through SPP and then the utility, you go straight to the actual local engineers that handle that substation. And the study process is as little as 3 months instead of 2 to 5 years. Yeah, we don't get in a big long line to wait for our turn to be studied. It's a little bit more immediate for the smaller scale projects, and that's the main difference really, is that we get some answers about the feasibility of a project a lot faster. And then there's also the construction itself, which is faster, smaller in scale, less disruptive.
Would you say these facilities are safer than the larger ones, or the same?
I have no issues with the safety of any of these facilities. None of the projects that I've been involved in have had anything other than a bolt coming loose in the first 3 months of operation on a project in Texas that we worked on. No one got hurt, but those kinds of things, yeah, nothing that called the fire department has happened on any of the projects I've worked in at all. Not fun, but, yeah.
Richard, I know you had some specific questions.
My issues was over fire.
Okay. Did I definitely can dig into how the fire suppression systems work?
There's no need in that. There's
Yeah.
no need in dragging it out. Just, I guess it was basically the same thing. I want to make sure our fire department is trained and had the equipment to handle anything that this may produce.
That is absolutely our interest as well. And fire department training is one of the elements of our pre-construction process. And I think I may have mentioned to you this, I mentioned this to you already. You can review that training as your staff changes over time as well. I work with a consulting firm that is a retired hazmat FDNY guy, and he's great. He's probably Arizona person out here. I worked with her on site before, and she's great. She's really good at the instruction. And you should know that you don't use water for anything other than cooling the perimeter. I know you know this. So very little, I think there was an issue raised about the potential for water contamination.
Yeah, there's been questions, again, because of the lakes and the wildlife that, and I think it probably boils down to more of the, if a fire happened and you had to use water to, and I know they don't typically use a lot of water to distinguish, but how would we make sure that any water that was used to help contain that fire didn't have any toxic chemicals that reached our lakes or our watershed?
So kind of twofold. If I was going to stick to strictly answering the question you asked, and that is, what would happen with water runoff in the case of a fire? So there's kind of two parts to that. One, you wouldn't put any water on the batteries. You just make sure you keep the perimeter cool, keep any trees that might be nearby wet, so that the fire would just stay inside of the fenced area and not go beyond those limits at all. And then the battery will just burn itself out over time. Adding water actually makes that take longer. You need it to get hot and do its thing until there's no more charge. And until it gets to that point, it's going to stay live, basically. And it depends on the state of charge, how long that takes. that takes.
What about toxic fumes or anything if they catch on fire? What do we need to be concerned about there?
So the kind of rule of thumb that I've heard that hazmat guy that I like to work with say multiple times is there's nothing contained in these facilities that is different from an office building fire. So it has copper wires, plastic, the metal, the same kinds of things as a typical office building or another kind of structure. So from the studies that have been done, it's all EPA compliant, exhaust, and electrical fire.
So with our increased temperatures this time of year, especially right now that we're in triple digits, what is done to address thermal runaway?
So thermal runaway is what happens. Yeah, so the batteries have multiple layers, right, and it's cell, module, unit. Thermal runaway is what happens if heat propagates from cell to cell to cell, and then it gets hotter and hotter as it spreads. Goes to the module, which is now a rack. And then if it moved all the way to the whole unit, that is what thermal runaway is. And that doesn't have to do with ambient temperature outside. It's actually typically a voltage anomaly that gets out of control. But that is something that the safety systems within the battery are constantly monitoring any kind of temperature signature anomalies and also gas release anomalies. And those systems are designed to catch that way before it goes to thermal runaway and shut down the part of the system that's got an issue entirely to stop well before thermal runaway will occur. And so when you Google battery storage, thermal runaway is something that you're going to learn about. But all of the systems that have been designed for safety now have these like multiple layers of redundancy in them with the intent of actually stopping that before it gets to the point of thermal runaway. Does that answer your question like way more than you wanted to know?
Well, no, actually, my concern is because thermal runaway can lead to fires, explosion, toxic gas release. I have a concern about, our environment, our surrounding environment, and preservation of the same. So if the system is designed to automatically address that, does that also increase the drain on resources? And we're talking about increasing the insulation or addressing that increased temperature that comes with the thermal runaway. So how is that internally addressed? Because it would entail more resources than a normal operation of the project.
It's a great question, and those are exactly the kinds of engineering challenges that companies like Tesla and Sungrow and Vance look at. And one of the changes that has occurred over the years, so we used to use the Connex, like exactly what comes out of a shipping container type of thing. And that is no longer the case. Now it's a purpose-built, double-walled metal container, hermetically sealed, so no liquid that could ever leak. And this about this much liquid that's in there, but it can't leak outside of the container. That's how they're designed, is to contain so the heat, the gas, any liquid, it's all going to be contained inside of a double-walled system that is purpose-built to be able to open just the part of it that's got a problem. The rest of it stays closed and sealed. So like, 10 layers of safety to keep a problem from happening in the first place. That's kind of what they're after.
So does Silverton have engineers on staff that address this and can opine to that?
So even better, we have Tesla and Sungrow and the manufacturers of the equipment that we use to come answer your questions, either remotely or in person. And that's the best case scenario. And then our engineers are mainly interested in the electrical design and civil design.
So, how many pods or battery storage containers will be located on this?
Yeah, Less than 4.
4.
Yeah, it's probably, depending on if it's, depends on, so what, we say 5 to 10 megawatts because that will be one of the answers that comes from the interconnection study process. How much headroom does this substation offer? And that will drive the answer to both questions. How big of a project will it be? And how many of those units will be deployed? I should also mention that between today and when we're actually ordering equipment, the number of batteries can sometimes get reduced because the density of each individual cabinet is ever increasing. So the footprint is shrinking.
And what is the life cycle of these batteries?
It's a great question. Similar to a data center or some other kind of technical operation, parts of the equipment will be changed out periodically, and the expected life cycle can be up to 40 years. We fully expect that to be the case by replacing the equipment as it needs.
Yeah, I had a question. Earlier you said that this, if it caught on fire, there would be no more pollution from that lithium battery fire than there would, let's say, the city hall burning down. Is that what your guy told you?
That's what I've heard him say. He's my right-hand person. We've had a lot of hearings and I've been involved.
So I think, a lot of us have, or people have seen the fires that happen for, lithium batteries, different things. There was one that Richard shared with me the other day of a container of batteries that fell over in Los Angeles. It was a couple years ago when the container exploded, and blew the sidewall off of the thing. How do these double-walled, hermetically sealed things prevent that? If one does explode, is it just going to go and stay inside there, or is the side going to blow out?
So one of the safety improvements that's been made over time, that learning from things that have happened, is that they have a ventilation system that is mechanically operated and also not mechanical. So it can be opened with pressurization without the mechanics, but it can also be opened by a sensing and monitoring system if it's sensing that there's an increase in pressure inside. And from what we've seen since that has become common practice, with the exception of one installation in Australia where they put it on backwards, so water got in.
Oops.
Vent itself. Yeah, they seem to function. They seem to have stopped explosions from happening. With the truck, hopefully it will never crash into anything and cause the release of gases. Yeah. Once they're parked on top of a foundation and bolted down, pretty unlikely that something will cause that impact like that.
Another concern that's, your proposed location is on the main road in the town. So there's concerns about aesthetics, so, what types of, nobody's going to want to drive by and see a field with even 3 or 4 containers sitting in it, So what kind of screening, what kind of facade or decorative, make it look pretty kind of things are you guys open to doing?
Well, I wish I could just Google for you the view from CEO Montoya's desk, the front entry to my battery storage facility in Maine. He made me sit in it and say, "What are you going to do for me? Because I don't want to look at it." So we planted some really nice trees for him, a mix of deciduous and conifer, so that he can enjoy his northeast fall colors from his desk.
And, I assume you'd have a fence around it,
For sure.
So, we could even, maybe have some kind of a screening fence or something to...
Definitely.
Yeah.
And we are very interested in being away from the highway.
Right, yeah.
Right. So, and there are some trees there already.
Yeah.
So that we can just supplement.
John?
Why would the community want this? What's the benefit?
Well, so there are kind of 2 benefits. The first one is a more reliable source of power and some backup power availability, increase in like this, you might need it. And then the other is the tax revenue, in whatever form that may take. It's not unusual for a project like ours to have a fund a portion of a pet project for, like a local city, whether that's a dog park or a new one to a library. I put a new roof on a community center for one of my projects in upstate New York.
Besides Lynn Valley, who else would benefit from this stored energy?
Well, your substation is fairly small, and so I can't answer that entirely without looking at the interconnection studies, because I don't know who else it serves. It might serve homes outside of your city limits, but it would serve mainly this circuit, so whatever that's serving.
So how does Silverton make their money off of the project then? Because we're not going to pay for.
Oh, no, definitely not.
The energy you're
There are a couple of different sources of revenue, the revenue stack, and typically we seek to have layers. One of them is the capacity supply obligation, as I mentioned. Evergy is going to be in hot water in 20 years, or I guess it's even 5 years, for capacity supply, which allows them to meet their reserves for backup power. And they pay you to sit idle until they need it. That's one potential source of revenue. The other is called energy arbitrage, which is kind of like trading stocks, where you buy low and sell high. And those are the two main sources of revenue in the current marketplace. And we're always looking for other sources of revenue, but those are the historic.
You touched earlier on the noise a little bit. You talked about the air conditioners. So, where you're talking about wanting to locate this is very close to the main residential, area of our city. What types of, as Corey was talking about on the data center stuff, acoustical studies and all that kind of stuff. How do we ensure that you're not going to be making a bunch of noise and somebody sitting out there, on their porch across the street isn't going to, hear a fan blowing constantly, or.
Yeah, so we definitely do noise studies when they're requested. The findings of the noise studies that I've seen is that by the time you get to the property line, it falls to the residential standard of about 60 decibels. So if it's across the street, it's pretty quiet.
And, I would assume trees and fencing would also kind of help buffer a lot of that.
For sure. So 60 decibels, I love to give the securities like a meaningless. What does that mean? It's about the volume of our conversation right now. So you can hear it.
Yeah.
It's not going to interrupt your news.
Is that per unit or the combination of
No,
all
that's
of
the
it?
whole thing. That's how they measure it from a unit, and they do like, it looks like circles, right? That's the way it goes, and as Corey mentioned, it drops off in a very standardized way over distance.
Curtis, you got any questions?
Pretty much addressed everything.
Mike?
No. Thank you.
Richard? No? Corey? Brett? Matt? No? All right. We'll have I guess if you're okay answering, yeah.
So what percent of storage capacity are you going to use with the current system you're proposing? Will you take it out to 100% capacity with the current?
Oh, I understand. Okay. So the batteries have optimal lifespan, but you don't ever charge them much above 80%. And basically, we would make those decisions based on the manufacturer, the recommendation. Is that the question?
So I guess my main question then would be, are you looking to increase the renewable energy opportunities to feed into this battery system? So are you working with someone for solar farms or wind farms to be added in the area so that renewable energy can be stored by your systems.
So the way that grid works is that we don't discriminate on the basis of electron source, right? There's like not even the ability to do that. So no, we do not partner currently with any renewable developers. We are a standalone storage company. We're not the only one, but there are definitely other companies that own these standalone facilities. And we charge directly from the grid with the electrons that are available during the load periods, which even in Kansas is really important.
So will we have plenty with the renewable sources that we have available today? Or do you see that it will need to increase?
You have renewable resources today that are currently contained. So that means they produce a surplus of power, and that margin is the business
I think
Great question.
one other question that is probably on everybody's mind here, that, you are a new company, you're less than a year old, and, you're asking us to be one of your first. Everybody has to get their start, and, you guys have, explained a lot of your background. You got people from Tesla that, built batteries. But from a city standpoint, we have to think about, you're gonna put the decommissioning clause and stuff in there, but what happens if you get halfway through the project, or even halfway through construction, and you go belly up? What are we left with at that point?
She's gonna put a share that you.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
all.
That's,
Okay.
that's a bond or
And then-
a credit or.
And that would live the entire life of the project?
Correct.
Okay.
It's an important question for your job.
Yeah.
I get it.
Well, if nobody else has anything, I'll thank you very much for your time.
Of course, you guys were way too nice to me. I brought my Teflon.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming.
Yeah, thank you, Georgia. Okay, now we will move to the water project, and Aaron Castro has been sitting back there patiently waiting for his turn to talk about water.
Yes, this will be quick. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. Quick update on the water project. Project right now, actually as of the end of June, sitting right at 60% complete, with some good progress made here in July. We'll find out exactly where we are at the next payout, which will be at the start of August. Some of the good things to highlight real quick. So far, we've got, I think, approximately 300 meters installed today. Those aren't all online for the city. I think about 140 of those were the existing meters that were in place on the Lynn Valley system. They got swapped out for new meters, and now the city's taken over those, and then there's been another 150 or so that have been installed. And just today, several more lines are becoming online and active, and so those meters are going to become ready and available for folks to start making hookups. So Ettinger recently has been very active. They've got crews working on continuing on the line installs, while they've also got several crews doing meter installations. So that's kind of the big update. I don't have too much more, no change orders to discuss right now, no big issues going on that we're aware of at least. So that's kind of the main thing. I know Ettinger's working on some cleanup in some areas. The transmission station, booster station, fill station portion of the work has hit a substantial completion milestone. So there's a punch list that we've got with the city and with Ettinger that we put on a preliminary punch list for some items for them to address at the connection point out at the scene and at the water fill station. I believe we just asked the question, didn't get an answer yet on the timeline, but the meter for the POA's fill station has been ordered. They're expecting that to come hopefully soon and can get that installed so the POA can begin to use the old fill station again. I think that's kind of the main updates on the water. I do have a quick small update on the sewer, but I'll stop there for a second, see if anyone has any questions on water.
Did they get the boring done underneath already?
Yes, they've broken several boreheads
Yeah.
So, yeah, I agree. They're still,
Anybody else have any other questions for Aaron on the water?
okay.
Actually, I do have.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you said we've got to be the 10-foot separation between your water service to your house and the sewer line. If you can't have that, what can you use for in case, can you use a conduit? For
2-inch HDPE, yeah, yes.
2-inch what?
HDPE. It's not it.
If you're going to be seeing.
And we did, in the construction meeting, Hettinger was talking about, we were going to get them to give us a example of how to connect the,
Yeah, just so everybody knows that the line that is coming out of the meters that are being installed by Hettinger, it's, I don't know what the letters are, but PVC and the PVC fittings will not attach to it. You gotta have a specific fitting to attach to it to adapt to PVC. So we're gonna get a sample there that probably put here in the office somewhere with Paige or Mindy. So if people want to know what this looks like, they can come see. There is another method, is where they actually weld the two pieces together, but they got to be the same height. They cannot be two different types.
So if I can, UHP and I,
Sure.
I don't know that.
one is ductile.
Yeah, I don't know
and
that it's
the
ductile.
other is iron. As far
Oh,
as
you're talking about
saving.
on the meter side, yeah, I'll have to get some information. What Hettinger was gonna do, Brett, he's gonna bring up here kind of a mock-up of a meter and then show the fitting connections. But yeah, I'm not positive, I don't have any good solid answer for you.
I know PVC, and I know PVC won't attach. So, but yeah, that's,
Now, if they want to use the fusion couplers, they got to go rid the machine just to do.
or have a contractor that has one. So, and there again, each hookup, each connection, Matthew has to inspect it. So the inspection process goes like this for everybody, and this is what we've got set up. Once the meter's installed, once you make the application for the permit, then you get approval for the permit, you dig your trench. Matthew has to come inspect it before you put pipe in. Then you put the pipe in, then you make your connection to the meter. Do not cover it up. Matthew's going to make that inspection. Okay? And then at the time when the hookup is complete, then the seal should be cut, and then you can turn the water.
Just a quick update for that, to make it a little quicker. You can dig your trench, lay your line, make all your connections, and I can do that in one shot.
Okay.
If you prefer to dig your trench and then have me come look at it and then put your line in, either way, I don't mind. As long as you don't bury it. Because if you bury it, you're digging it back up.
So,
Because I have to see the material that was used and the connections made.
but yeah, I wanted to get that out there to make sure everybody was understanding that there's a procedure to do this. Just not going out there with a mini hoe and digging a hole and making a mess of things. That ain't it. So.
and then you had a small sewer update or lagoon
Yes,
update?
just that the notice of proceed has gone to Double S Dirt Works as of June 22nd. Can't remember if I noted that at the last meeting, but we're in the pre-construction phase, getting submittals in hand, reviewing things, and so we don't have a start date from Double S yet on their plan for when they're going to be out here to break ground. But I think last I heard from their contractor was they were wrapping up another project and then basically going to move on to that one out here.
Any questions on that?
But the clock has started on their contract with that notice of receipt.
Oh, okay, cool. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you, everybody.
I don't know what item 12 is. Water system inventory? Oh, that's the- okay.
We need to start ordering meters and stuff.
And we got to go ahead, that was project funds.
Yes. The inventory.
Yeah, they haven't said yet.
Oh, they haven't said yet,
Okay. So we're still on hold.
but we still, I mean, we're gonna need meters.
We got a preliminary answer from USDA that basically said they're open to allowing project funds to be used for the purchase of things, but they have not responded on what was sent them, saying, hey, here's a list of things.
Oh, okay.
So these quotes that we've been provided from the two different companies are from back in March and May, I think. So we could be facing a price increase.
The question is, why do we have a Windwater and Ferguson when we're in Maine and all type of?
That was what Mike
This was Mike
for
Page.
Page went
These are
through.
these are the parts he needs to maintain our system.
It's worth noting, however, that those project funds can attach with the DAO requirements, the Build America, Buy America requirements. So I'm not aware, and I've asked Mike, but he doesn't have maxed out, whether or not the list that he got from Windwater or from the other provider, if those items are going to be valid or not. So USDA would want certification that whatever we're buying with project funds is
Yeah,
valid.
you're gonna have to estimate on all of them.
Yeah. The good news is they're open to allowing the project funds for it. The mechanics and how much and from where will have to be worked out. We're just dealing with some of the same challenges we deal with. Unfortunately, with this project, the kickoff happened right when we lost all of the USDA funds that went to. So I know I say it every time we're here, but it's been one of the biggest challenges we're dealing with is getting answers and responses from USDA.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
If anyone has contacts at the state level and wants to reach out to representatives, that stuff helps. It's just annoying to do, I know, but we do our effort to reach out to a single contact in the state of Kansas. We call all the time, but we're not going to hear from them, we're not going to Hamilton and City, so we'll do our best to make that happen at this time.
Thank you.
Sorry, this is not the right-
Ron, before we ask you another question.
I'm out here.
Okay, so no action on that until we hear from USDA then, I guess.
Should we ask for an updated quote just to make sure we're within the?
Can.
Yeah,
But I
probably.
just, well, you
And-
know, there's houses being built with the water line running in front of them, and we do not have extra meters to sell them, so we can't put it off too much longer.
Well, those wouldn't be project funds, those would be.
No, but-
So we could use some city money to,
Yeah, but we need to
Yeah, go ahead
decide,
and order some.
huh?
Go ahead and order some.
Where would you?
whatever's cheapest. Whatever's cheapest that meets our standards.
I just read one municipality's minutes where they ordered a case of meters and it was $1,800.
I don't know that I'd want to use those.
A case of meters.
Oh, a case of meters?
Oh, I thought you said a
Just what you
quesadilla.
gotta have.
I'd like a quesadilla right now, but I need a case of meters.
Windwater always has stuff in stock.
They do, and
Ferguson
they
does
deliver.
not. And
So-
Windwater delivers. Ferguson,
I don't know if they deliver.
How-
they do deliver, but
We just
They
need
only
to know
have-
where you would
they
prefer
only
them
have
to.
2 delivery trucks, where
Ferguson.
Windwater has,
Oh,
Windwater has.
I mean, I've always dealt with Windwater, so I don't know the other.
How many meters should we get?
I mean, I know of like 2 or 3.
I can tell you probably 8 people out of new home construction that have asked me already, when can I get a meter?
So
Not
we,
just, it's the pit, it's the
Right.
whole
The
enchilada.
whole
Yeah.
thing, yes.
Okay, so the,
Yes, I've had at least 8 builders. I have one ask me today, when can I get a meter?
and we
I
did
haven't
get
answered that yet.
confirmation on that today. If they are on if they're on the old POA lines, whenever, doesn't matter. If they're on the new lines going in, if that line has been put in service,
The lines are in service. That's where they're at.
then we do have the okay for Mike to install meters.
Okay. We don't have the meters
Yeah.
So should she order a dozen? What's
No, maybe you're in a case.
a dozen?
Yeah.
A dozen.
That wouldn't have meters on it. That'd be the quote from Mike Sparks.
How much are they? I mean, it's not a question of whether they'll be needed or not.
Well, these lists are the parts that Mike needs to repair our system, not install.
Yeah, those are like spare parts. That's a
Yeah.
spare parts
That's what that
inventory,
list is.
not a
So
required
your meter
meter.
pit is basically,
But that list don't include the meters themselves.
it's $200 a meter pit itself. And like you said, you don't have the meter out here, where's,
Well, the meter pit, and then they wanted them cast iron lids.
Yeah, with the antenna.
And then the meters with the antennas.
yeah, that's the lid right there
Right.
with the hole in it. So that's the $200 for the meter pit, but. And where were you seeing that in meters?
He didn't price out the meters. Mike priced out all this.
Oh. But she's saying it's made from meters, not the.
Right. Well, all the meters that come with the project come with warranty. So we don't.
Well, they're saying that there's new homes that
Right.
are
Mhm.
gonna be taking up.
Yeah, I'd say we need at least a dozen. If she knows of a few, like 8,
So does this company have the same meters that we need?
Yes. Yes, and water.
Yes.
I don't see any spare meters on this wind water,
They're
so
not.
he must not be
They're not.
wanting an inventory of meters.
No, he does not.
So go with the one.
Who do we go with it on?
I was over there,
So you're gonna have to get a dozen meters with kits and meters.
Yeah, they got to come with the electrical, whatever, which fits in the.
With cheese.
Okay.
And that'll just come from our.
general fund,
our
or utility fund, or somewhere. Mindy will figure
See
it
how
out.
much- I mean, we might have money in the water,
Yeah.
so.
If not, then we're going to have fireworks money.
Yeah, we got firework money, yeah.
It's on the way out.
He's ordering quesadillas.
I can get that to bring out.
So do we need to make a motion for this purchase?
I would say yes.
Yeah. Anybody want to make a motion?
I make a motion that we purchase 12 meters with kits from Wind Water for an undisclosed price.
I'll second that one.
All in favor? All right. Go spend money, Mindy.
Okay.
Anything else on that? We good on that for now? Okay. Old business ordinance and resolutions, the water connection ordinance. I've been digging into that and trying to get it where it needs to be. It is way more than it needs to be and way less than it needs to be. So I am still working on that. That will be ready for you. I am committing that you guys will have it in your inbox next Monday. So you guys have a week to read over it before we vote on it the following week or discuss it.
Okay, and if you need help with that, I will help.
Yeah.
Because this needs to be in place.
Mhm.
We have people on our service now.
Yeah.
If I open up my stuff and I don't see it on Monday,
Next Monday.
next Monday.
Yes, a week from today.
So 5:30 next Monday morning, I have to put it on there and
Okay. If it's not there, you call me at 5:30 in the morning and yell at me. You should have it on the city phone. Well, that's right, you don't use your city phone. Yeah. It might still say lose name, but it's only not my number.
I can't even get the thing to turn on.
It's so, you have to take the case off then to turn the case off.
Come knock on my door, you know where I live. I'll be awake anyway, so. Next, ordinance 281, tiny homes. Do you have anything to, no update on that? Okay. You did see P and Z is asking about that. Okay.
Yes.
I'm not trying to be rude or anything, but why is Matthew's Wednesday like 8 feet long?
That's good. There it is.
Meter.
It's that time again where we're all getting a little punch drunk.
Yeah, all right. Our sergeant at arms is getting on to us. We better behave. Meter hookup payments, Mr. Hemphill.
We need an executive session for that.
Okay.
Discuss what.
We've got one here in a little bit. We'll throw it in there with that. Planning and zoning consultants, Ms. Smith.
Yeah, I'm still working on this, but I've obtained some good information from other municipalities. Had some conversations that so far, basically, they do not allow their planning and zoning commission to enter into any kind of contract with a consultant, carte blanche. It's on a per project basis, granted by the council. So, but I'm getting much more information.
And do they generally use those consultants for all decisions or only big decisions, or?
So one municipality in particular, I spoke with their mayor, and they have a list of consultants that they use from across the U.S. based off of the type of project that they're looking at. They updated their plan and used one consulting company. They had another project and they used a different consulting company based off of their expertise.
Oh, I like that.
So I'm gathering the names of those consulting companies as well as some more detail.
And do any of them make recommendations without consulting consultants?
Well, it depends on the municipality because some of them are large enough that they have in-house. One in particular, they use their city clerk to do research for them. And have the city clerk report back, but then another, they use consultants.
So it's not uncommon for a city not to take things to a consultant for certain items.
No, like changing the zoning of a property, like when we change it to commercial or industrial, we wouldn't need.
Right. Tiny homes, probably not.
I don't see the agreement.
Yeah.
You said allegedly, you're following the same code.
Okay. Anything else on that, or just a good summary for now?
I'll tell you that again, man.
That's my summary for now. But like I said, I actually am getting more information than I initially asked for because they're so forthcoming
Oh, good.
and helpful. So it's going to have to be reorganized.
Yeah.
in very
We don't need to make any snap decisions on it, so we're not in a rush.
I would like to see our planning commission an update as far as, because on our website, which is all I have access to basically, their last meeting was in March of 2025.
They did have one earlier this year that Matthew and I were at. It was basically a meet and greet. They were waiting. They did email me the other day, and I think I copied you on the response. They were asking where we were with re-engaging with Olshan, and I said you were researching it, so,
Yeah, the one thing
There.
I do know as far as those that have responded to me, they don't give their planning and zoning commission a budget for consultants. So,
The other municipalities don't?
it's just, we would decide that, okay, we're going to give this to them, and they could ask us to use a consultant, and we could yay or nay it. Okay, so we needed executive session. I'll let Jamie weigh in on if we need to call two separate ones or one. We have property acquisition and attorney-client.
We can do it all under one as long as you articulate that it's for those reasons.
Okay. Oh, yeah. We'll do that one.
How long you need?
You need to say.
15, 20 minutes max?
I'd say 15,
15.
and then we got that extra 5, so 15 is more than enough.
15 minutes?
Yeah, make a motion, we go into executive for acquisition,
Property acquisition and attorney-client.
And-
client privilege.
And the other one, there's 3 of them.
That goes under attorney-client privilege, so we're
Yeah.
And the return, let's just go with 840 to this room.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are back from executive session with no action taken. We have new business, we have one item here, but we actually have two. I'll do with the one that's not on there first. As council is aware, that I did send an email, was it last week, I believe, that Lisa Koch is resigning as court clerk. We talked to Lisa Beecraft about taking on that responsibility, and she is definitely interested in doing so. Corey and Brett and Jamie and the judge Nate would help train her on the workings of the court system and all that kind of stuff, and we would get her training through Jayhawk Software for the software side of things. So I guess I need a motion to approve that personnel shift to give Lisa those additional responsibilities.
I have a question. Was she full-time in her position?
Lisa Koch?
No.
Beecraft.
Lisa Beecraft, yeah, she's full-time, but she has capacity.
Okay.
And Lisa Koch worked, what, 3 or 4 hours a week?
3 or 4 hours a week?
Yeah. So we're not putting a huge burden on Lisa Beecraft by her doing that. And it also gives the advantage of the court clerk is always here. If somebody comes in to pay a fine or have a question or whatever, there's, unless she's on vacation or sick or whatever, she's here. So.
So you think you need a motion for it? Are you still wanting that motion?
I don't know, we need to talk about it at least.
I'm saying we just want a motion for our city clerk to be a research assistant.
Oh, yeah, we need that too. I heard that.
Well, who is going to do it?
I think you're doing a fine job.
So I guess I don't.
Make a motion that we let Lisa, what is Lisa Beecraft's title?
Administrative assistant?
Administrative assistant, take on additional duties of court clerk?
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. The last new business item is the meter install refusal policy that we talked about 2 weeks ago, just to formalize that. Oh, so do we punt?
Huh?
Do we punt on that?
See you in 2 weeks?
We need to.
See you in 2 weeks, all right. So the final thing,
Research.
yeah, you can research some, yeah.
I just forgot to put it in there.
The final thing is citizen participation for non-agenda items, and there are a couple of citizens still sitting out there if anybody would like to speak. Nope. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I do have one thing.
Oh, too late, I said a motion to adjourn.
You didn't put council members on here, but I did bring it up to Paige and you regarding a citizen's inquiry into what are they?
Containers on
The
this, yeah.
containers on property. And he referred to ordinance 552, I believe it was. I can't find the ordinances on the
Well-
city's webpage.
Yeah. I can give you a little background on that, and Paige or Mindy can chime in too. That gentleman has reached out to several of us asking the same question, and the answer is always the same thing. We do allow containers on lots during construction. If there's a building permit, a container for storage of construction equipment is allowed. There is no time limit. There is no, it has to be this certain type of building permit. It's just, that's the way it is. Could that use tightened up, maybe? Yeah, we could potentially do that. But that is the way things are written today. And, you know, if Mindy or Paige want to add anything to that.
I can show you the code after. Okay. Is it on the website?
Yeah,
Oh, codes are on the
Yeah.
website, just not the resolutions.
yeah.
All right, so is there a separate building permit that they have to apply for to have those on? Or is it just an automatic, you can have it and it doesn't even need to be on the building permit?
Right, there is no building permit for a container. The fact that you have a building permit and you have active construction going on, or not even say active construction, if you have a building permit, you can put a storage container on there to store your construction equipment. And I don't even think it says to store construction equipment, it just says you can have a container on there. So, could that be something we want to look at some point to maybe tighten it up? You know, you guys are certainly able to propose that and, you know, propose new verbiage for it or whatever, you know, then that's,
Does the resolution require removal of it once construction is complete?
yeah, within 30 days? Yeah,
30 days
All in the
after,
code. Yep.
after the permit's complete.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you, I
Mhm.
appreciate that. Is our new website going to have all of our resolutions available?
It will have the same thing you can search something with right now. And
Well, I tried searching for it and it said,
It's a code of ordinance. The resolutions are.
I just put.
yeah,
the-
we need to
oh,
get them on there
Yeah.
somewhere. I think some resolutions are on the existing website, but not everything.
Yeah,
Um,
but
they're-
like they expired because I
Yeah.
put in like 552 and.
We don't have a 552.
Yeah.
525
We don't have a 500 roll.
No, we're not even up to
255
200.
maybe?
We're not even up to 200.
So, but
Maybe
I
150.
struck out. He gave me the number and I put it in. It didn't
It-
show up.
those may not be on there day one, because I've pledged to launch that website on August 1st. All the existing functionality will be there and some new. The resolution and ordinance complete listing probably won't make that August 1st date, but they will follow.
That'll be nice. That'll be nice. Looking forward to it. Fresh.
All right, entertain a motion to adjourn?
I would like to put out there that I really appreciate you on the council. I think
I think she's a great researcher.
Yes, I think.
Thank you. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
I agree. I think you have stepped in there in the middle of a lot of stuff, and you're asking good questions, and you're definitely an asset.
Well, thank you. I'm still learning, still striking out some things, but I am trying, so.
And you add color to that side over there, thank you.
So,
it's not my fault I gotta sit next to this good-looking guy. Of course it's gonna make it look bad.
well, I'm not going to ask about a motion again until I've asked.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Well, I was going to say, Richard, do you have anything to say? All in favor? Let's go home. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
And please, anyone watching this YouTube stream, let me know if the audio is better. I've heard some reports already that it is much better, but I would like to hear from everyone
I'm sure we'll
that
get
they can hear.
feedback